Hey, how's it going, everybody? And welcome into Mock Draft Week here on the SFS channel. If you're new around here, or this is your first time checking out my content, this week, Monday through Sunday, I am posting a new fantasy football mock draft with slightly different settings, league sizes, and all that good stuff, just for the good old fact that we love ourselves some fantasy here, and we're celebrating the fact that my top 250 player rankings and draft guide profiles have been put up on the website, sizzlefantasy.com, for you all to go out and check out to help you with your 2021 fantasy football leagues. But today, up on the block, I've got a 10-team half PPR mock draft. We're drafting from the 1.5 overall position. Yesterday on Mock Draft Monday, which is a weekly staple here on the channel. And if you'd like to be a part of that, you can by going down in the description of today or any video of mine and clicking the free invite to the community Discord. I dropped that link in there before I go live, but today it'll just be me chatting with you guys along with the Sleeper Fantasy ADP. So we're going to get this thing rolling here. Let's talk some fantasy. The main reason that I just want to put out a ton of mock drafts for you all this week is I think that they're just the easiest form of informational exchange in the fantasy community here. Mock drafts are different every time, and you have the ability as a viewer to check out my content or any other fantasy analyst for that matter and see a slightly different scenario and a slightly different take on a draft board every video you watch. So I've got a playlist. You want to head over to my channel. There's a ton of mock drafts on there from just this season. I mean, I don't know why you go back and watch the 2020 mock drafts that I did, but if you want to do that, no one's stopping you. But everything happens a little bit differently. And when you switch up league sizes, and now all my mock drafts, I try and change up my draft position to give you a different perspective and a different angle on how to approach things here. There's just a lot of things you can take away from it and quickly become a very well-rounded fantasy player by just soaking in and absorbing that information. So I thought when I picked this 1.5 draft spot that I was going to be taking Ezekiel Elliott here at this 1.5 pick, but I think I'd kind of be a fool to let Derrick Henry walk. I do have, and if you're new around here, I just posted... We're posting 11 videos this week in 7 days, so heavier schedule because I am making a mock draft every day. But I just posted today, along with this mock draft, my top 24 running back rankings as a little sneak peek to my draft guide rankings. For those of you guys who go check that out, Zeke is actually my RB5 for this fantasy season, and Derrick Henry is my RB4, so just a slight differential there. And here in this 10-team league, that number 10 team just got one heck of a combo with Diggs and Elliott. But here we go. So we went Derrick Henry, running back in round 1. I think the floor is really safe there for him in Tennessee. I think he's got maybe not quite as high of an upside as he had last year, or at least in terms of matching that production he had in 2020. It's going to be dang hard for him to get back to 2,000 yards rushing and 17 rushing touchdowns. That's just ridiculous for any running back to get to. And when he doesn't catch passes, it's rather concerning and iffy to me. So I think he'll see some regression, but still be a very elite player nonetheless. A lot of options here. I think that I'd feel comfortable going with D-Hop. He's questionable. He must have got banged up here. He sat out of Thursday's practice with an unspecified injury. Well, that was 3 days ago, so we're not too concerned about that. Okay, so my next best ranked running back on my board would actually be Najee Harris, who I could take advantage of and I think would be an excellent pick here, but someone I don't think I've given enough light to and who is actually ranked just one spot below him in my draft guide rankings is Antonio Gibson. So we're going to give him the draft spot here just to balance things out a little bit. You know, Derrick Henry is more of a standard league play in just the form of how he comes about his fantasy points. I just talked about he's not necessarily a player who's going to give you receiving production, but that's exactly what Antonio Gibson's fantasy value is predicated upon. I mean, he does absolutely present a threat to defenses as a rushing threat, but where he does the majority of his work and the best work is in that passing game and catching passes out of the backfield, plain and simple. So I think it gives this team a nice balanced dynamic, a nice balanced approach to how we're getting those fantasy points. And as my RB12, I just came out of this first 2 rounds here with 2 RB1s. So, well, I guess they'd be RB1s in 12-team leagues. But for the purpose of this video, technically Antonio Gibson with the league size would become a high-end RB2. But you understand where I'm going with this. So looking at the board here, it's a half PPR league, so we got to keep that into consideration. The running back group, I'm okay passing on the guys right now. I don't feel a pressing need to draft 3 running backs in a row, and in fact, I tend to not like to do that all the time. So I think it would be wise. I really like about 4 of these wide receiver options, but I don't know if I could get my guy at tight end if I waited here. So what is this, the 25th overall pick? It's a slight reach on Darren Waller, but since I like so many names at the wide receiver spot right now, I'm going to dip in here. I actually do like Darren Waller and have him ranked 1 spot above George Kittle in my fantasy rankings for this season, for the sole fact that I just think that he's got a safer floor and might even have better upside than Kittle. I think that Kittle's actually the better NFL player, but for Darren Waller in fantasy football, he gives us a bit more value because he doesn't really have competition, or at least significant competition for targets in Las Vegas. And over the past 3 years, he has had better touchdown production than George Kittle has. So a couple things to take into consideration there, in addition to the fact that he has a higher target share percentage of his offense. And it actually looks like we kind of got duped. So the fact that I had liked 4 wideouts that all went off the board there is a bit surprising. So we're going to have to readjust here. And this is why we do these mock drafts. You can see things play out, different strategies. I tried something new there. I wanted to go out and take a chance on Darren Waller, and I think that we gave ourselves an elite positional advantage at the tight end spot. But now I'm looking at some receivers with Terry McLaurin, Allen Robinson, Keenan Allen, and Justin Jefferson gone, that I've got to kind of weigh my options here and maybe take a bit of a risk. So Michael Thomas is currently out. If you didn't hear about that, he is recovering from ankle surgery that's going to keep him out 12 to 16 weeks. So that is something fairly relevant to take into consideration here. My draft clock is winding down, so I'm going to have to make a choice. I'm just going to take my next... actually, here we go. All right. So ADP disagrees with this choice significantly, and I actually I messed up. Uh-oh. All right, well, we ended up getting Michael Thomas. I was trying to take Amari Cooper, who I actually have ranked. I'm not going to spoil it, but you'll see it in tomorrow's video. So if you want to stick around, if you're new around here, haven't seen my content before, we're on auto draft. I messed up, folks. I have done wrong. That is all right. We got a solid player in Lamar Jackson. So I get auto picked, and then while I'm blabbing here, I make the fatal mistake of not turning the auto draft off because I was talking for too long. And had a couple of misclicks there and missed out on Amari Cooper. But nonetheless, Wednesday, if this is your first time checking out the content here on the SFS channel, I will be posting my top 24 I already posted today my top 24 running back rankings. The top 24 wide receivers will be coming out on Wednesday or the following day. And chances are, if you're watching this after the post date, that video is already out and accessible to you. So how's the team looking right now? Well, since I completely whiffed on drafting Amari Cooper because I couldn't quite find... Look at that. ADP, the next team literally got him after I was feverishly trying to snatch him up off the board. That is quite unsatisfying. Nonetheless, actually, false alarm. He went the following round after we got auto-drafted Lamar Jackson. So Michael Thomas out 12. Okay, I got to make a pick. Otherwise, it's going to happen again, and I'm just going to look like a complete idiot here. So my next highest wide receiver on the board, I should have really extended the draft clock. I had it down to 90 seconds for doing a subscriber mock with some Discord members for Mock Draft Monday. If you want to watch a much more slow-paced fantasy mock draft episode, that might be a better option for you. It was 12-team half PPR. We're going Tyler Lockett here. He's my next highest rated wide receiver on the board. Nonetheless, MT, for crying out loud here, 12 to 16 week ankle/foot surgery. He's not going to play week 1. He's going to be a fantastic fantasy option when he comes back and if he's healthy in this offense. But at the time being, or at least week 1, this team's going to have a little bit of a hole at that wide receiver spot. But it's all right. Tyler Lockett, I drafted him there in the 6th round as a player I think that's very underrated for his upside. And something that, I was thinking about Tyler Lockett the other day and just trying to find a comparison for him in past years. And as a player who nobody talks about as being the best wide receiver in the league or the best player at his position, I was trying to think of a comparison of who does Tyler Lockett remind me of, and not necessarily in play style, but in terms of how he is thought of and how he comes about his production. And as a Green Bay Packer fan, I've closely followed Jordy Nelson and his career in Green Bay. Jordy Nelson, if you recall, was never considered the best wide receiver, never considered the best player at his position in the league. But the chemistry he had with Aaron Rodgers, his quarterback, was unmatched, and those two were nearly always on the same page, no matter what. That is the exact same thing that we see from Tyler Lockett and Russell Wilson. Those two cannot miss with one another. They always know what time, what place, where the ball needs to be, and they just make magic happen. And it's as plain and simple as that. He is a really, really high upside wide receiver 2 this season in my book. I think he's got the chance to finish as a wide receiver 1 again, like he did last year. When he wasn't a decoy, when he wasn't hurt, his numbers were outrageously productive, and he's a player that we should not be sleeping on at all this year. I went Jamar Chase there in the middle of the 7th round. We're filling out this team pretty quick because I've got that draft clock on fairly quickly here. But Jamar Chase, I think, will be the top producing fantasy asset at the wide receiver position in that Bengals offense. You talk about elite college player who won the Blitnikoff, which essentially means you're the nation's best wide receiver, as a sophomore in college, and then reunites with his quarterback who just happened to be the number 1 overall pick for that same franchise the year prior. That chemistry, boom. We're finding the wide receivers today that have chemistry with their quarterbacks. Michael Thomas does not have that at the 4th round pick for us, but I think that'll hold down the fort in the time that this team would be waiting for Michael Thomas. I think we could get the job done with Lamar Jackson, those 2 running backs we put together, Lockett, Chase. Clock's winding down yet again. It's time to make a pick before I make a fool of myself once more. I think I want to dip into the running back crop here, but I'm not exactly sure which one I want to take just yet. Tick-tock, tick-tock. For those of you at home, I hope I'm not making you anxious by letting the draft clock wind down to literally 3 seconds before I make all of my picks here. But I went Raheem Mostert. I think that's probably the first time I've actually taken him in a mock draft here on the channel. At the end of the day, there is some risk here, and Raheem Mostert is always going to have a role in this offense as long as he's healthy and obviously under contract, but he has something that no one else in this offense can do, and that is absolute electrifying play in the open field. Have you watched the 2019 NFC Championship highlights against my Packers? It was pretty brutal. You should if you want to see some quality running back production, but you know, Mostert could see injury. He dealt with it for a lot of last season, but he was putting up top 12 numbers when he was out there on the field. This guy, he just makes big plays happen. He's kind of old, to be honest, for the fact that he had such a late breakout age. I mean, what is he, almost 29? I think he's entering his age 30 season. Yeah, you would never guess that based off of how short of a time frame we've actually heard of him, but the guy's been on like 8 teams. So Trey Sermon is absolutely a threat to come in here and vulture all of his production, but when I'm looking at the board right now, I could actually handcuff the 2. That'd be an interesting thing to see play out here. I do like the idea of taking Robbie Anderson, though, and shoring up that wide receiver core while we're dealing with that Michael Thomas injury. That's the route we're going to go. We're going to roll the dice here. I doubt Trey Sermon makes it back to us, but he could. You never know here. His ADP is very quickly rising as we approach draft season. So there he goes to Team 10. That's fine. Nonetheless here, I think that no matter what, even if Trey Sermon sees a breakout, Raheem Mostert's still going to be involved. They have very differing play styles. Mostert, again, is that electrifying player that he just hits the open field, gets out in space, makes defenders miss, and outruns people. Trey Sermon is going to be a dump truck. He is going to be running people over, bulldozing through the line of scrimmage, hitting holes hard. He can do his own in the open field. He can run guys over. He can jump over people, hurdle players. But Mostert, there's just something about his game that I just know Kyle Shanahan will utilize him when he's available for this team. He's been the one guy over the last 2 seasons that has seemingly always had a role week in and week out. as long as he's healthy. We've seen Jerick McKinnon, Tevin Coleman, JaMychal Hasty, Jeff Wilson Jr. All these guys come in and out of the lineups, but Raheem Mostert has been there and has been productive for this team. So, haven't even said a word. Haven't said a peep about Robbie Anderson yet because I like to talk about my picks. This is what I'm talking about with these mock drafts. I like to break down fantasy situations, tell you why or why I don't like a player, and just get you a broad perspective of fantasy content in every single video. So we're going to take Brandon Cooks and take a rapid-fire approach to Robbie Anderson here. Robbie with the Jets reunites with Sam Darnold. Robbie reunites with Sam Darnold, his former quarterback from the New York Jets, in Carolina with the Panthers. Anderson now in year 2 with the team. Darnold in year 1. It's likely he's going to be that safety blanket. DJ Moore, the ceiling is higher for sure, but Robbie Anderson outpaced him in targets last year with 138. He might just do it again this year. So you're talking about a guy who's got the target volume. He's got explosive ability over the top to make big plays downfield. Touchdown upside, it's rather iffy. He's not too productive in that area of the field, but if he can hit those home run balls, you're all fine and dandy there. 1,000-yard receiver, 3 touchdowns last year. Those numbers could trend back up with Sam Darnold back at the helm this year. All right, back into Brandon Cooks now. Rapid fire. Brandon Cooks, I talk about him in basically every mock draft because he always falls to me. 119 targets as the number 2 option to Will Fuller last season. He went in free agency. He's now on the Dolphins. Brandon Cooks is the clear-cut number 1 option now. I mean, he's not an alpha wide receiver, but he has been productive in like 5 different teams now. Patriots, Saints, Texans, Rams. That's the other one. All right, I got to make a pick here. We're going rapid fire in today's video. No one mock drafts as fast as the SFS channel. That's not true because all our last 3 episodes have been an hour long. Oh boy. All right, we're gonna get a handcuff pairing here. I usually don't pick 2 quarterbacks, especially one here, but at this point, I figured it was worth it because we had Jamar Chase. I've now got myself the opportunity where if Lamar Jackson somehow gets COVID a 3rd time, which he is currently dealing with right now, I've got myself a top 12 quarterback option. He's my 10th ranked QB at the position. That is Joe Burrow, of course, and I also drafted Jamar Chase, my expected number 1 target for him this season, to play a fairly significant role on this team while we wait for Michael Thomas to recover from injury. I see some names I like on the board here. I'm not so sure I'm ready to stop drafting running backs, as I think it's a bit thin right now considering we only have 3 of them. I do love the first 2 we picked. Actually, I'm a big fan of Mostert here still. But I think that there's just too much risk trying to ride for much longer without another player. I'm not loving the value at the spot, though. I'm not loving the names I see on the board right now. I might just have to reach for a player. Take a guy with some standalone value. Let's go Gus Bus Edwards. I mean, I was choosing between him, Tony Pollard, and Jamal Williams. Gus Edwards just has an established role on the goal line as just kind of a ground and pound threat for the Ravens offense. Not explosive, complete opposite player of a J.K. Dobbins, but he vultures touchdowns. That'll help us every once in a while. And if something happens to J.K., Gus Edwards, once upon a time, basically won me a fantasy league playing as my second flex in, oh God, who was hurt for I don't even remember who the starting running back was supposed to be for the Ravens that season. This was Lamar Jackson's rookie year. But I picked up Gus off the waivers. He somehow stumbled into the Ravens starting role, and the rest is history. I had Watson, Hopkins on that team. I've talked about this team many times on the channel here. It was an awesome group. I nearly went undefeated. I only lost 1 game that season. Melvin Gordon in 2018 with the Chargers, where he was basically, I think he's like RB2 or 3 to Todd Gurley and CMC that year. It was an awesome group, and by far one of the most complete drafts and best work I did on the waiver wires of all time. And that was kind of the start of this whole channel here. So the good old days. I could take another one of those running backs. Jamal Williams, the other guy who I liked at that spot, still on the board. But I'm going to take Darnell Mooney here. Darnell Mooney is one of my favorite sleeper targets for this fantasy season. I love the upside, and he was heading in as technically the wide receiver 2 for the Bears this year, but They sent Anthony Miller out of town. He's in Houston now. More targets for Mooney. And Mooney, we saw, he does work over the top. He gets open, finds separation. I mean, he was once upon a time on Wikipedia named the father of Jalen Ramsey due to the fact that he absolutely flamed him downfield last season. So if he can get some competent quarterback play, you're looking at a guy who's got very, very high upside here. And I think Andy Dalton is even better than the two options they had last year. So toss Justin Fields in there week 8. You're looking at some fireworks down the stretch this season. I'm not going to because I don't want to pick 3 quarterbacks here. That'd be foolish to do in a 10-team league with only 16 rounds. We've got to address defense here pretty quick. But I could stack him with Justin Fields just like we stacked Jamar Chase here. In these 10-team leagues, there is so much depth that I really wish I hadn't gotten auto-drafted. I mean, it's my fault, but I really wish I hadn't gotten auto-drafted Lamar Jackson because had I not, I could have waited and I would have felt more than comfortable riding in with Joe Burrow as my QB1. Then I could make a pick like that and get myself a very, very good starter later on in the draft here. Okay, I'm trying to think about which... Oh, man. The clock is coming to get me again. Boom, Russell Gage, another one of my favorite fantasy sleepers. This is like the all SFS sleeper video. I can really have my way with these mock drafts when we're talking these 10-team leagues because there is a lot more value that falls to you and kind of those mid-level floaters in every round that are just kind of picks that make you not really feel too great about yourself. You can just kind of skip over those guys, overlook them. Don't make any crazy reaches, but I mean, I reached like 5 picks on the board to take my guy, Russell Gage, who saw over 100 targets as the number 3 option in the Falcons offense last year with Julio there. Now he's the number 2. We're drafting him way too late. Like, we shouldn't be seeing Devontae Parker, Henry Ruggs, Nelson Aguilar. Well, there's a case for Nelson Aguilar. I like his upside, actually. But the point being here is he's incredibly undervalued, and the upside he possesses makes him more than worth the pick because Bateman and Beasley, who went after him, Bateman doesn't play in a high-passing volume offense. Beasley has his own issues with the NFL's rules and policies, so we'll see how that turns out. All right, one last pick here. We trucked through this mock draft today. We'll do a quick recap of the team here once this one's over. But day 2 of mock draft week is nearly in the books here. There is so much quarterback value here on the table. I really wish that would have played out a little bit better for me. How about it? You know what? I usually don't do this at all, and I tend to not like this strategy at all, but I might get myself a very valuable trade asset by drafting Adam Trautman there. Essentially, Adam Trautman with Michael Thomas off the field is, I think, the second best, just inherits the second best target share in this offense behind Traquan Smith. I mean, who are they going to throw to besides Alvin Kamara? Beats me. Sean Payton likes tight ends, likes using them down the red zone. I could potentially, as I already have Darren Waller as an elite fantasy option at the tight end position, Trautman will not start for this team, but when he has a few nice weeks at the start of the season and his value skyrockets, trade market time, ding, 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 flip him, find another upgrade at the starting position, maybe package a couple quality bench players and get yourself a bolstered flex here, get a better RB3 for this lineup, which it could really use, to be honest, an RB4. I think that'll play out very well for this team and could be a potential use for that draft pick there. I was also considering going Elijah Moore, who I don't think got drafted, unless I'm blind. Yep, he did, 15-10. That was my other option there, but I've already got such great receiver depth. I really, really like the guys that took out the position there. And honestly, I mean, when this team's got everyone healthy, that's a deadly lineup right there. Some reason the Rams haven't been picked yet. We almost got bitten by the draft profile picture again. I misclicked yet again and almost had the auto draft, but I probably would have gotten a decent option. All right, so let's take a look at this team. So we'll break it down for us really quickly here before we head on out for day 2 of mock draft week. Remember, subscribe, turn the bell on if you're new around here. Day 3 out of 7 is coming tomorrow, so you don't want to miss out on that. Lamar Jackson is the QB1 for this roster. He is my quarterback 4 for this fantasy season, so he is in an elite tier at the position. Derrick Henry and Antonio Gibson in my 12-team leagues are both running back 1s for me. Great upside, very, very safe floors. I think those are 2 very good players to have at the position. When they're healthy, Michael Thomas and Tyler Lockett as the wide receiver 1 and 2, I feel pretty confident about that. And I think that while we're waiting for Michael Thomas, maybe 4 or 5 weeks into the season to recover, I feel very comfortable putting Robbie Anderson, who has that connection with Sam Darnold, into my lineup and rolling out Brandon Cooks there as well. Maybe even Jamar Chase, flip-flopping between the 2. I think that there's enough depth at the position on my team where there's going to be success. There's going to be quality numbers being put up by multiple players here. And I actually feel good about all the picks that were made, even the ones that got auto-picked for me. So Gus Edwards, probably the lowest upside of anyone on the team, but he does have standalone value at running back, and the position was just ridiculously thin. It's a good representation, and it's a good reminder that we need to be drafting running back early and often and making sure that there's enough depth and upside at our position groups there to be able to win our leagues, because the receivers I was drafting in the late stages of these 10-team leagues were quite honestly, it was shocking to see how good of talent and how good of upside was available. Mooney and Gage in the 13th and 14th round is absurd, and I again said I wanted to take Elijah Moore in the 15th round. He could be a wide receiver 2 down the stretch this season, putting up those numbers on a week-to-week basis. So much production value to be had at the wide receiver position. It's kind of the synopsis, the summary, the main takeaway from this video. In these 10-team leagues, there's a lot of players you can get late that have starting level capabilities outside of the running back position. So make sure 10-team leagues, you're drafting your running backs early. Those guys are not going to stick around long. I mean, let's look at the board here. Sheesh. I mean, after Chris Carson is really when things start to tank. Maybe Mike Davis, maybe Chase Edmonds are some diamonds in the rough here. Myles Gaskin, but hoofed. Once you get past that 8th round, it gets rough. Raheem Mostert, maybe we got lucky there. But after that, there's about 1 name I like per round, and that is not something that's good. So be careful. Take it easy, you guys. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I'll see you guys for day 3 and my wide receiver rankings video for tomorrow's episodes, and I'll see you there. Peace out.